Hey there, it's Jeff Luther, and you are diving into the podcast for the Service Business Blueprint. This is where I walk with you and help you unlock the secrets to building a thriving service-based business. We talk about everything from starting out to setting milestones in your company you didn't even know would exist. We'll cover entrepreneurship, personal growth, mindset, everything you need for success in your service-based business. You ready to build that blueprint? Happy New Year! Ready to get back into the groove and continue on with the podcast and all the progress that we've made. I hope everyone's year is off to an incredible start. I know mine is. Looking forward to 2024 being at least as good as 2023. And of course, always the hope is that it's better. So in lieu of the new year, one of the things that is a tradition is people are always having New Year's resolutions, setting goals. I'm not one big on setting a goal for the new year, having New Year's resolutions, or doing anything different for the year. I don't really look at January as a time for setting a goal. I like to have those throughout the year. I have a real short-term attention span. So I have to break things into smaller pieces and kind of do it throughout the year. It may carry over into the next year, carry over into the next quarter, whatever it may be. But I want to address that kind of the traditional goal setting. Things that I've done in the past, trying to stay consistent or at least have a topic of conversation with folks that do New Year's resolutions. I've done things kind of peculiar, like one time for the entire year, I wanted to write my eights differently. So instead of having one line where you write an 8, I wrote 2 circles for an 8. I like to do fun things like that. Like I wrote my A's differently for an entire year. I did not eat any fast food for an entire year. And by fast food, I mean anything that you could pull up and grab and go. And I had to go in and sit down wherever it was. And the idea really wasn't about the fast food or the health. I do stay pretty healthy. Fast food's not really part of my diet. But the idea was I wanted to manage my calendar better because I was constantly running into someplace, grabbing something and running out and going. Like I'd run into Publix and grab sushi or something like that. So I did change that habit, but it was really more about my schedule and my calendar, managing that better and managing my time better. I was an inspector and I was working full time. I was out doing inspections every day. I had to run the business in the evenings and in the mornings. So the idea was to get a more practical, more comfortable, and more healthy schedule. So speaking of goal setting, I've often felt kind of like a fraud as an entrepreneur because I don't have these big goals. Like I'm gonna own a yacht, or I'm gonna do all these things. I'm gonna have 50 employees. And a few years back, well, I guess it was probably 7 years ago, we were doing our annual planning in my organization, our leadership team. We run EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System. And we were having our annual planning meeting, and we were going through and defining goals for the year, and then also long-term goals, like personal goals, professional goals, each individual. And as we were going around the room, they started with me, and I was like, I kind of feel like a fraud as an entrepreneur. I don't have these goals. I want to not worry about college is kind of what it boils down to for me. I've got 3 kids, and if all 3 kids go to college, of course, that's a big financial burden is not really the right word, but financial burden, it's a big cost. So I wanted to not worry about that. I don't live a lavish lifestyle. I don't want to build a business and sell it, watch it get kind of ripped apart while all the people that helped build it are being affected. So I didn't have these big goals. Then as we went around the room, our leadership team started talking about their goals. We had a person that wanted to be a trainer, wanted to train other inspectors, and wanted to do it kind of regionally so he could travel and manage inspectors in different parts of the region. And then we had another inspector that wanted to own his own business, which of course would make him a competitor. And then our marketing person, who I had the extreme pleasure to work with for quite a while, said that they wanted to be a marketing director regionally. So they wanted to travel, they wanted to have departments in different parts of the region where they could go in and manage and kind of bounce from one to the next, set up marketing strategies, help their sales team market and move on to the next and kind of manage it from afar. And as we were going through and listening to this, I was like, guys, you can't do that here. Like if you want to own your own inspection company, you're a direct competitor. If you want to be a director of marketing for a regional company, we only have our one office here in Atlanta. You can't do that. And if you want to train folks, you want to train inspectors regionally and go from one to the next and go to different regions and travel, that opportunity is not here. And it made me sad initially. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, why not? Why can't you do it here? So we decided to open another office. That's when we opened our office in Charleston in South Carolina. So all of that to be said, you may be feeling the same thing, that you don't have these big goals. Maybe you're not setting yourself up for success because you don't have goals. And people do oftentimes feel like a failure if they don't have goals set. And I will say goals actually do create our future in advance. It gives us a place to know it lets us know what we're moving towards. And we often feel like we won't get the most out of our life if we don't have goals set. So here's what I would like to do. This is what this podcast is about today. I would like you, all of our listeners, to think about some areas in your life that you might not be satisfied with. Now, we don't have to go through this thing, I'm a terrible marketer, I'm a terrible salesperson, I want to be a better parent. But think about some things that you might not be most satisfied with. Could be financial, could be your fitness, health, relationships, in your business. It could be employees or labor, whether that's their participation or their performance, or you don't have enough or you have too many. Your revenue, your sales volume, profit, anything where you are not completely satisfied. Just think about those and maybe start writing them down. And then what I will recommend, what I suggest, is we start putting some goals around these things. Over the course of the next few episodes, I'm going to talk more about goal setting and get specific. I thought about this as I heard a lot of people talk about what their goals were for the year and laying these things out. And so there's some pretty lofty goals. And oftentimes we do set ourselves up, not for failure, but for disappointment, where we have these lofty goals that are far out looking. And I've seen my own self do it, and then they kind of get tossed to the wayside as little things come in and get in the way over and over and over. Yeah, they're small things, small little obstacles, but there are a bunch of them, and it just happens over and over and over and over. So I would like to challenge all of us to put all of these things that we're going to be thinking about over the next few weeks into smaller bite-size pieces. So instead of having a lot of really huge and far-reaching goals, it may make more sense to us to have maybe smaller, attainable goals that we can get and clip off one at a time. I'll kind of, let's put it this way. Dave Ramsey, a financial expert, world-renowned, super successful, sets people up for super success. And a lot of the experts will disagree with one of his philosophies on paying down your debt. His philosophy is that you start, let's say you have a car, you have your house, you have credit card debt that you've been paying on, you got student loans, medical bills. Let's say you have 5 different lines, 5 different debts, or 5 different accounts that you're paying on a monthly basis. His principle is forget what the interest rate is on those. Find the one that has the smallest balance, pay it off first. So let's say you have a credit card debt of $2,500, you're paying $106 a month, and you're just kind of barely clipping away at that principal balance because the interest rate is so high. He says take that smallest one and pay it off first, because then you get a sense of accomplishment. You see that you can pay this debt off. You pay that off. Then you take that monthly principal that you were paying towards that line and you add that to the next smallest amount. So it kind of starts to snowball. So we're going to take that same approach with goals. That's some of the things that I've done. So let's do goals around personal growth. We'll do goals around personal growth first, just kind of a shot in the dark. So again, we're going to talk about goals in very specific areas. For me personally, now other people may feel differently, but I find this to be the most important piece of the equation for any business owner. You learn how to grow. That is learning new ways to deal with adversity, learning new skills, developing yourself and your team. These things are critical. You develop yourself so that you can help and you can support developing others. It's the same principle. You put the oxygen mask on first, right? And that has long been the stance of the airlines, but we seem to have just kind of started to accept that as business owners, as mentors, as parents, as friends, as partners. All these things in a relationship, the saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you try to fill your cup up first, and then you can pour into others. So personal growth will be the first area that I want to talk about. Then we'll put some goals around business strategy. What is your business strategy? What strategy do you want to develop or maintain or even change over the course of the next year? Maybe you don't know what your strategy is going to be, but you know that the current strategy you have isn't working well for you. So maybe there's some things that you want to change. I'll relate that to the what do you want to start, stop, continue. So I want to start doing this. I need to stop doing this. This seems to be working well for me, so I'll continue that. People is very important. People in a business is important. So I will be putting goals around that, and I'll share all of these. What are some goals you'd like to put around your people or your team? Do you want to develop your team? Do you want to go from having a virtual assistant or someone offshore to having someone in-house or in office even? Or do you want to go from your people working remote to working in office, or your people working in office to working remote? Do you want to reduce your labor? Do you want to increase your labor? Are you interested in developing your people? So some goals around that as well. And then we'll talk about putting goals around profit. I have a really great experience share in my business just in the last 4 months around profit. Profit often gets lost in the entrepreneurial world. Businesses are usually more about gross sales. That's the good cocktail talk, right? What your business run rate is. Oh, we're a $5 million company. Those things don't mean anything if you're not profitable. And I am speaking from experience. I have been caught up in the vanity of revenue. Revenue is a vanity measure. Profit is where it's at. So profit, often it gets lost in the entrepreneurial world. Businesses are usually more about gross sales. That's sort of a benchmark for companies. So I want to talk about profit goals. Maybe a goal is just knowing what your profit is. Maybe a goal is just knowing what you want your profit to be, and we'll work towards that. Maybe your goal is learning how to read a P&L statement. That may sound foolish to some folks, but there are a lot of business owners out there that don't know how to really read a P&L statement. But more importantly, how do you figure out your profit? How do you figure out what your profit is? How do you maintain it? Maybe have some goals pointing to adjusting your variable cost versus your fixed cost. That can adjust your profit on continuum in an ongoing basis. In my business, I had a lot of fixed costs going into the fourth quarter last year, and I made some big changes about fixed cost, changed those to variable costs, and I'm still learning a lot more about that. Lastly, we'll talk about revenue growth, how to point some goals to that one. Revenue, like I said earlier, mostly about vanity. This is a metric for size, but you cannot pay bills with revenue. You can only pay your bills with profit. You can only give bonuses with profit, right? You can only give pay increases with profit. So maybe you want to increase your sales price. Maybe you want to increase your price of your goods sold, your price of every item that goes out the door. Or maybe you just want to increase your sales number. Maybe you want to expand your geographic reach, so you're increasing your sales that way. These would all be ways to increase revenue, essentially. And there's really only, I think, 4 ways to effectively increase your revenue. You can sell the same thing to more people, right? That would be like expanding your geographic reach, getting more customers. So you can sell the same thing to more people. You can sell more of what you have to the same people. You can increase your sales price, so you can adjust your price up. Or you can increase the size of the transaction, like upselling. Would you like fries with that, right? So you can add ancillary services if you're a service business, which I hope most of you are. That's kind of what we cater to. That's where my wheelhouse is, my expertise. So you can add on ancillary items. Like for us, we add on in our home inspection business, we add on radon testing. I think that's critical in the home purchasing process. We add on sewer scope. So I personally think that's critical in the purchase of a home. So we add these things on to increase our sales price. So those are the 4 things you can do. You can sell the same to more. So sell the same thing that you've been selling to more people. You can sell more of what you have to the same people. In our business, that would be hard to do. You can increase your sales price, or you can increase the size of the transaction, upselling. Would you like fries with that? How about an apple pie? So back to goals. The basis here is, we've all probably heard the term SMART goals. That's what we want to think when we're setting these goals up. We'll get more specific as we go through this series, but we want to make them SMART. That's an acronym. So specific. So instead of saying, I want to know more about my finances, that's not very specific. I want to master a P&L report. That would be specific. I want to have a 12% profit margin. That would be specific. I want to increase my sales. That's not very specific. I want to go from 3.2 million this year to 4 million next year, or I want a 20% sales growth. Those are specific. So SMART, specific, measurable. Those things are measurable. Something that we can measure, that we can put an actual goal around, and we can tie it to results. SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, or achievable. It's something that we want to be achievable, something we know we can attain. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, or relevant, something that's relevant to our business. If we have a lawn care company and we've got some goals that we've set up, and one of them would be to, I don't know, have grass that cuts itself, right? It's not really realistic. And then our last one, SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, or relevant, and then time bound. So we want to have a buy date. If we want to be if we want to have a 5% increase in sales, or a 10% increase in profit, or whatever that number is, we want to have a buy date by June the 5th. That's when I know this is done. These are all the things I'm going to do. That's when we know this is done. So we all know what the exercise is, right? It's goal planning. We're just all going to think about areas where we would like to improve, areas where we might not be 100% satisfied. Think of the areas where you want to see improvement: personal, business strategy, people or labor, profit, and then revenue or sales growth. I hope that you'll follow along with this. This is a great exercise. I'll be sharing some of my goals as we go through this next series of this podcast. And then, maybe some people will write in and share what their goals are. Obviously, you can always do that in the comments section below there. And then I have had a couple of people ask me, I think before I even changed this podcast, when it was still the Inspector Alliance, I was doing some book reviews, and I kind of got away from that. So I've had some people ask over the last couple of months about the latest books. So I am going to work hard to at least do a book once a month. The Greatest Salesman in the World is the book I'm going to talk about real quick. It's a short story. It's kind of a parable, I think it was how you call it. It's really a younger kid, I'll call him, goes to a really successful salesperson and says that he wants to learn how to sell. He wants to be a master salesperson just like him. So he ends up giving him 10 scrolls. And it's really neat because these 10 scrolls are ways to live, for that person to live their life and be successful in selling. And it's really more about how we live each day. The scrolls are different, just different ways to live. As far as giving back, not giving back, but as far as giving, as paying attention, as being present. A really quick read. It's a great book, and I would highly recommend it. The Greatest Salesman in the World. Happy New Year to all the listeners out there. I am so grateful for you. I'm looking forward to this series for sure with goal planning, and we'll get it covered over the next 4 episodes. And then also, I'm very much looking forward to this new year and continuing on the coaching business with the Service Business Blueprint. If you like what you're hearing, just click the like button below, follow us along, and until next time, I can't wait to see you. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for hanging out on the Service Business Blueprint with me, Jeff Luther. Stay in the loop as we keep delivering these strategies to supercharge your service business. Hit subscribe, leave a review, be part of our growing community. Now you have someone to walk with you as we create your service business blueprint. Until next time, remember, where you focus is where your energy goes. Beliefs turn to things, so choose the good ones.